It's 5:15. We'll call to order the June 10th PUC meeting with members Haney and myself present. Ms. Rist cannot make it tonight. The reason for the PUC meeting was to address Ordinance 2135 and give recommendation to Ordinance 2135. Ordinance 2135, and since we're in a committee meeting and we've already discussed this numerous times in committees and workshops, I'll be brief here and then we can talk a little bit about it, or I'll give a little rundown about it in the after the reading of the legislation, just for the general council meeting, in case people just tune in for that, just for transparency for our citizens. But one housekeeping thing: the attachment for the schedule that was in our original council packets had the admin and water flipped. So we all have a revised version of that table on our desks tonight, which will be attached to the legislation should it pass. Okay. We've had numerous discussions. Again, this is the RCAP recommendations for water rates, because we've seen through our 5-year forecast those funds not only heading in the red. That's just to continue as is heading in the red, but that's with no proposed plan for improvement of infrastructure, replacement of water lines, all those things that we know are going to take place and have to take place over the next 5 years that would take that fund even more into the red. So through the mayor's contacts, we reached out to RCAP. They gave us a recommendation, not only based on our current state of finance with that fund and projected 5-year forecast with that fund, but also those planned improvements, offering the residents something in return as well, knowing that they're going to have clean, drinkable water and not have lead pipes like Flint, Michigan, pipes that go unaddressed for years and years and years, that will actually have a replacement schedule that will stick to, because it will be financed. And that's where their money's going. Also, one other thing, two other things I want to mention about this, since my name's on the top of it. I wanted to see, after this schedule ended, if you all remember when we've had numerous meetings with RCAP, but one of the questions I asked was about the inflationary cost, and the thing that I hesitated about was the inflationary cost that he used versus what we've been trying to adopt in our other legislations that we've passed about tying that to the consumer price index, inflationary cost. And so you'll see in that legislation, the only thing different from RCAP that I recommended was, after this table ended in 2030, that instead of using the blanket 3% inflationary increase, that we use it based on CPI moving forward after the table. Also, the final thing to mention that was an important part of this was, remember, the recommendation from RCAP was to also include in this schedule an affordability index. It's not on that table that we have in front of us, but it's in some of our emails from the PowerPoint presentation that we received from RCAP, some of the handouts that we received in our workshops about this. But remember, it takes quite a few years before we're over that affordability index, that mark of 1.5%. I think that that you have to hit one before you start qualifying for certain grants. And then the other thing was it takes into account the median income for citizens of Ironton, and 1.5 is around the threshold of what people can afford. So it took all those things into consideration, as well as our current state of affairs, future state of affairs, 5-year forecast, and planned revision and upgrades of infrastructure. That's what I have to say about it. We've talked about this numerous times. Do you guys have questions about it? Nate?
There's a couple things I did want to add. I'm supportive of the ordinance. However, I would like to see, and I asked the mayor in conversation to have an education piece for our community as far as what all is involved with RCAP and the improvements that are recommended over that time and what they can be expecting with this investment of their money. And it was quite extensive as far as line replacements to valves to hiring additional personnel to be dedicated to those valves, which is an upcoming EPA mandate, meaning we have to do it. So I would just like to make sure that if this would pass, that we could do some sort of an outreach to our residents, either through the Tribune or social media, or a combination of, to kind of highlight what to expect from water and water distribution, and that we are providing them for quality product, and want to continue to do that in the future.
Ironically, I had that exact same conversation with him.
Yeah,
So he's heard it twice.
I think the best thing is kind of putting the whole schedule on the website so it's available anytime.
Yeah.
Instead of it, you run the Tribune and it gets read once and then no one's holding on to it. But I think our best approach would probably be to just put it under one of our departments, like the water departments, and you'd be able to download it like a PDF.
I think it's a great idea.
See where here's what the schedule of, like, this pump has to be replaced in year X, or this is the salary of this person in year starting this year, and this is how many valves we anticipate to replace. This is what lines will be replaced that year. That's what makes this a lot better than just a typical rate increase when we're trying to scramble to stay out of the red. This is actually something that's like you're going to see the improvement with it.
Thank you. I forgot to just mention that too. It's proactive rather than reactive. Need to write that down for my notes for council.
Yeah, it's not like you're coming in with a high increase. It's the next couple of years it'll only be increasing by maybe 20 to 40 cents. So, and that way it keeps it from having to worry about big spikes.
Chairman Harvey, that last presentation that recap gave to us, I can't remember his name, but something that really
Nate
stuck,
Davis is his name.
Something that really stuck with me was it's a philosophical change from really the 20th century, where you build it, use it till it won't work anymore, and then build a new one. And we're changing it. I think this prepares us for the future, and there was no preparation for the future that I could see. But we're taking care of that now, and I think that's a philosophical change from council's point of view. So,
And it becomes a lot more expensive the longer you wait to replace things.
yeah, sure.
Chris?
I would I'd like to see us take a look at the current fees that are on the current utility bill and see what is justifiable and what is not. Because I don't know, I would definitely can't recommend this out of public utilities with the current structure it is, but maybe if we could find a way to lighten the blow with some of the, I don't know, like I've said before, the economic development fee, haven't used it. I understand people are wanting to use it, but that's a simple solution by just passing the 3% lodging tax and funnel that money, some of those funds into economic development. I don't know, I just can't, when I came here and the reason I ran for council was because I wanted to do everything possible in order not to raise fees without compromising on something. You know, that's what government's all about. That's from the beginning, 1776. It's been about compromise. So I'd like to see if we as a council, as administration, can come up with a way to take a long look at some of, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 9 charges, which I understand there's services, but there's also fees on there that I think we could take a long look at and see if do we really need it or do we not. You know, and we could apply that towards some of these increases. So I'd like to take a longer look than, you know, when was that RCAP meeting? Was that,
And we've had,
well, when was the final one where?
May 19th.
So I'd like to have either a workshop or something and take a look and dive deep into some of these fees and charges on the utility bill before I can.
Okay. Two things, Chris. One, I don't want, I don't disagree with you on analyzing the fees, but I also don't want to stand in the way of moving forward this at the expense of like waiting to do that. That would be my stance on that, one. And two, I totally get your ire, your frustration as a citizen when you came to talk about raising fees, because just like Mike said, the philosophical approach of council has always been reactionary. It's always been, oh shit, we're going to be in the red next year. We got to raise this fee $10.61 just to break even. And then we raise the fee $10.61 just to break even. We get no extra services. We get nothing else done except break even. And so I get it. I totally get it. I understand what you're saying, but I feel like this is different. This is different because this is gradual. It prepares us for the future. And your kids and my kids, if they ever run for city council, are never going to have to go, God, we got to raise that fee $10.61 next year because it's taken care of by this council being proactive. So those would be my points. And along your sense of compromise, if you're not comfortable with this, it's got to get some kind of recommendation from PUC. So if you want to unfavorably recommend it, I'm perfectly okay with an unfavorable recommendation because it doesn't really affect it one way or the other. So, so I just want to get a recommendation before we adjourn PUC.
That's fine. And the thing about it is, I get, and I've researched CPI, and I think you guys are on the right track with CPI. That would have been, if that would have been enacted 15 years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this right now.
That's exactly right, Mayor.
Yeah, to go off what both of you said, I think you're both right. This is the way it should be done. This is the way
with the way this water rate analysis was done. And I think that's kind of what we do need to do to the other ones, but I don't think that it should be in lieu of this one, because this one is the right way to go about doing it. I think that's, you know, what they proposed is gonna start us on track beginning in July. But I think maybe it'd be nice if we had an asset management plan for every single fund that's funding the city and piece of infrastructure, which we are moving forward to start work on the sewer plant, which we have a feasibility study going on, but also doing an asset management plan for that too, that way. And I think if we could just, like you were talking about, you know, looking at those funds, coming up with those creative ways to fund it, that's absolutely, I think, the right thing to do. But I don't think we take it out on this particular, because this is the right way.
Other thoughts?
Yeah,
Bob?
I'm going along with you on that idea. You know, we've always, all the years of being here, we always look at all the utilities. If it needs a raise, was always the first one in line that voted in. Because in an enterprise fund, you know, that money is not being collected and then turned around and used somewhere else. I mean, it is designated one place only. And I hate raising any fees. And I think what you're saying, it seems like we have some fees on the bill that we don't really utilize. I mean, even if it's a $5 economic development, like you said, I mean, you know, it might soften.
I'd like to take a look at it.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, you know, I couldn't vote for it tonight,
Right.
but in 2 weeks I might vote for it. I think that's a great idea. I think we should have finance director, John, if you could maybe get started on something like what Chris talked about, look at the other fees that's on the bill to see, because we've got a bunch of money coming in, and all these little fees, you know, I can't remember all of them, but I know I've voted most of them in. But with the money we're getting, it might be something we can eliminate, something we're collecting on. So,
Ironically enough, Bob, and
Yeah.
ironically enough, if you'll remember, I voted no on all those fees.
oh, yeah.
And the reason I voted no on all those fees were because of what I've already expressed, the frustrations I felt about being reactionary and never saying this will take care of it moving forward. And instead of like one time in it, the death of 1,000 paper cuts, which is what we've been doing, like rip the Band-Aid off and do it one time and let's get it right the first time. And I think getting it right the first time doesn't just come from this body and John, but also including RCAP and asset management plans and feasibility studies. And I firmly believe this is the first time I'm going to vote yes on a fee increase. And I can't remember when. I can't remember the last time I did. Do you remember? Because I sure don't. But the reason that is because I feel like we're doing it the right way, and that it's a different approach. It's a different philosophy. So I'm willing to take the heat. I'm willing to take the hit on that. Throw me under the bus, because I firmly believe that we're doing it the right way with this. So I hear you. I understand. I get it. I do. Nate.
I'm just gonna echo those sentiments. I was the same way with Greg. I voted no on the fees also, because again, I thought it was not a long-term solution. It was just a Band-Aid, so I couldn't get behind it. If we would have passed that with the CPI 4 years ago when that was proposed, it might not have been where it needed to be, but it would have lightened the load. You know, or been one. So Again, I'm in favor because it's a solution. It's not a Band-Aid.
Want to recommend?
Yeah, I'll unfavorably recommend
Or-
ordinance 2135 PUC.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye. Ordinance 2135 is unfavorably recommended by PUC. Any other business for PUC, Chris?
No,
I would like to mention that I think that along your and Bob's sentiment, and I don't want to take this charge up because I have, and it's been futile, and I've wasted lots of time and effort on it, and I'd rather someone else take the torch. I'm looking at the someone else to take the torch, but I'd like to visit how to address the storm utility fee equitably, fairly, with runoff rather than tying it to potable water.
I agree with that.
And so I think that's a charge that the PUC needs to take up, but I'd be happy to turn all of that novel of information over to you, but maybe it takes someone else's approach, Chris, because I've been
That's the type of solution I'm talking about. You know, give and take, and I agree. I've agreed with that since we talked about it a long time ago. You know, the break even wasn't too much for minimal users, but the savings could be a lot for certain residents. You know, so those are some of the things I'd like to take a look at. I agree. You know, and you know. That may be the solution, you know, that may be the solution to, you know, not fix everything, but fix a large portion of what we're talking about here. So I would, you know, it's probably looking like it's gonna go 3 meetings, so, I mean, between now and then, I'd like to, you know, I'm open for whenever we can get available and kind of hammer out some of these issues, because I think we all see the writing on the wall, but I think we also need to do everything in our power to, you know, do what we're allowed to do and do what's best for residents.
Rare that I say, fully agree with you, Chris. Motion to adjourn PUC.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Aye.
Aye.
All right, not to hog all the committees, but I guess I'll call the Finance Committee to order for June 10th, 2021. Members present, myself, Mr. Klein, and Mr. Cleary. And the items on the agenda for tonight, John, we weeded through some of them, and so if you want to hit the indirect cost allocation, we have that handout here first.
The indirect cost allocation is something that is required to be performed by the state auditors biannually. Eric Seacrest has performed this at least 2010. It is a contract performance. He had originally estimated that it'd be around $3,500. We were able to assist with his information substantially, and it reduced the amount of the contract to $2,650. So we saved almost $1,000 on that. Indirect cost allocation is a double iteration method, and for those of you that may understand this better than me, I'll explain it to the best of my ability, and I'm going to use payroll as an example. The costs to do payroll are divided among all of the departments that have employees. That is the first iteration. The second iteration of that is saying, yeah, but we have payroll costs here also. So it is a double iteration. It is allocated and then reallocated. If you can tell, right on the inside folder of this, I have a couple of different emails One of them shows through correspondence with Eric, so we did go over this pretty closely. Pointed a couple of things out with him, and he said he made a couple of corrections. This is the final allocation. And looking at the final allocation, this year's was substantially higher than the last allocation. So I also contacted the state auditors and said, it is my understanding on here that you can go up to the amount of the indirect cost allocation. You cannot exceed that amount, but you don't have to go all the way up to what is allocatable. So that is a response of, yes, that's the way that works. My recommendation would be to keep the same indirect cost allocation as it is. If we increase some of the funds to the maximum allocatable amount, it would fiercely put them in a negative situation. So this, once again, required biannually by the state auditors. This fulfills our requirement.
Questions?
And it's done independently.
Questions for John about 213003 indirect costs? Curious.
This is all reviewed by independent, right?
Yes.
Okay. Independent.
Independent, and this has been, he has been accepted as an indirect cost allocation model person by the state auditor since at least 2010.
Thank you.
Bob, Nate, either of you?
Where's that, where's the allocation at?
The application's about the third page.
Oh,
In the yellow,
Is that, are you talking about
Talking
the
about
ordinance or
Yeah, I read the ordinance.
a resolution?
Yeah,
turn about 3 pages in, Mr. Cleary, it's highlighted.
This one.
no, the one
I
binder.
think I had brought this to your office, but you're welcome to look at this one.
Well, appreciate you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That's the same thing that the mayors used to always do years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
There's been
They never
indirect,
used any firm or anybody to do it. And it was really almost, I think it was kind of, when the mayors did it, they were kind of balancing the budget of that department by doing unallocated funds.
Nate.
So John, on the summary of allocated costs, it has on there like municipal court, community corrections, it has like health fund, equipment replacement fund, all different funds listed on there.
Yes.
We don't take money out of those,
no, only the highlighted.
only the
ones.
just those 4 enterprise
Yes.
funds is all of
Yes.
this? Okay, all right. Okay. I'd like to make a motion to give favorable recommendation to resolution 2133.
If I ask a question first.
Oh, yeah, sure, go ahead, sorry.
I mean, you can hold your motion, I'll second you just a minute. So just for example, the sanitation, so we're allocated 47,000, current is 20.
Yes.
Means it's gonna go to 27.
Now, that is the difference in the current allocation model and the one that we're using. And my recommendation is to continue using the one that we are currently, the 20,130. Otherwise, if we use what we can allocate, that is the maximum we can allocate, it's going to drive some of these funds in the red. And if you'll see on the second page of this allocation model, that is where the auditor said, yes, that is a correct assumption on that. That you can allocate up to that amount, but you don't have to allocate the full amount.
Okay, let's talk about the bar just for a second.
Okay?
So I'll be better understanding, 203,000 is the total allocated, and the current is 156.
Yes.
That's what you want to go with?
Yes.
But you could have done another 46,000.
If the fund could have held it, yes.
Okay, gotcha. All right, I'll second the motion to favorably recommend.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Resolution 2133 is favorably recommended by finance. Next, John, do you want to do vac truck, police vehicles, or do you want to skip the bond update and then circle back to those? Because those are pretty straightforward.
I will be glad to give the bond update because this is a culmination of a couple of months anyway of pretty much work. The money is in our account today at about 3:30 p.m. So we are funded for the projects from ABM, which is an energy efficiency update. And we also have funding for bridge and roadway improvements. We also did a refinancing for the fire station, which ended up saving the city the remainder of the term around $65,000. So there's a lot of good work with the city of Ironton, with
Joseph.
Baird,
Yeah.
and with Dinsmore and Scholl. And then Citibank is our partner on these, so pretty excited and appreciate everyone's efforts on these.
You guys got any questions about the bond update?
I guess just kind of maybe going back to the mayor, what's the timetable with ABM to pull the trigger on that? Is the funds coming in?
Yeah, the citizens.
There is an introductory welcome aboard letter that I believe the mayor and I both have received. I met with Joe yesterday, just, to say, Joe, we'll know something tomorrow about the bond financing. He is to meet with the mayor next Tuesday to really start putting the timetable together on the mobilization and implementation.
Okay. My second question is with the bridge and road. I feel confident that we're going to meet those 2-year deadlines with the bridge expenditure and as far as that goes.
At the moment, yeah, I'm just like working with Kyoto and look at what roads are eligible for federal or state funding. So we use this like a 10% match of this money, using the remainder towards the residential, most likely roads, the ones that don't qualify. So once we have that, I think it's HHR, so they use the engineering firms doing that.
And the bridge expenditure is going to be within that 2-year period also?
That should be definitely.
Okay.
I don't know, I just don't have like a clear cut timeline on the paving part of it yet.
Mike?
Mayor and John, don't we have to start the road paving aspect of that within 6 months, or is there a length of time we have to begin that?
The only crunch things like that, from my understanding, John, is that if it goes over the 2 years, you have to start watching what your interest that you gain. You can't be gaining interest on.
Is your hope or plan to begin some of that this year?
This year, construction, probably not. I mean, we need the plans developed and everything to have that ready. So,
I'm just referring to the roads to begin
the
paving.
construction of the roads, we'd have to do the design and everything. That would have an engineering firm do the design of the road and cost estimates, and then again, I don't wanna blow it all towards, just willy-nilly, and I wanna make sure that we use it and stretch it as far as we can with matching for federal dollars, state dollars.
I want to make sure one final thing about ABM. Does this fulfill our minimum obligation with them so that, okay,
You just have to do one.
I just wanted to make sure, I mean, not that we want to just do one. I think it's a great investment for us, but just making sure we've fulfilled our minimum obligation with them.
Yeah.
I would like to add one thing with the ABM bond. That is a self-funding bond.
Yes.
In the fact that there are dollars that we borrow, but there is a guaranteed savings with that will pay for the bond itself. If those savings don't materialize, and it's a no change order project, if those savings don't materialize to the degree where they thought they would, then ABM makes up the difference on the payment of the bond.
Yes.
So it is no additional expenditure to the city at all. It is a savings program.
Chris?
With the savings, that brought up a good point. Do we need to create legislation for allocations of the savings for it to go into, or, I mean, what is our plan for the savings once we start generating savings off this program?
Go ahead, John.
I think that we should put that back into the bond.
Right.
And the other thing is that this program is as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, but this program, after a year, they come in, their contracts did show the formulas.
Mm-hmm.
This is how we calculate those savings. I can promise you that there will be one person at least scrutinizing that, and I'd say that there's gonna be 8 people pretty much scrutinizing that we will make sure that we are in agreement with numbers. I think that since we have these bonds, and I believe it's Fund 51 and 52, I believe, since we have the bond and the expense, then we'll probably create another line,
Right.
revenues in those funds, because we're going to track excuse me, we're going to track them specifically within their own funds.
Right, yeah, I mean, I remember when he said, this is guaranteed, guaranteed to break even, but we're telling you, and I don't know the numbers, he sent them to us and we had a couple meetings. But, well, I guess what I'm asking is, are we gonna determine what's over the bond repayment? Are we gonna put those savings into departments, or are we gonna where are we gonna put those,
You
the
see them,
excess?
you see them in the utilities,
Right.
that those departments use, so you probably just see a lesser number
Yeah.
being
Okay.
expensed out
Okay.
of that. That's where the savings would fall to the
Okay.
bottom.
I didn't know if we were gonna try to put it back into.
You won't see it in a revenue, you'll see it in a savings.
Gotcha.
John, resolution 2136, vac truck, we can rip through that, and police vehicles quickly, I think.
Yeah, we're looking to make the decision tomorrow on which one we purchase. We have 2 options here. We've already got a commitment resolution passed by the council in West Lafayette to purchase an existing back truck for $85,000, and it's a 13-year-old truck, so we've done a good job keeping that in good shape. So we'll make that decision tomorrow, which one we go with. The numbers are about the same, on the price. So the only thing that I wanted to mention, which I noticed in their resolution, they're using their ARPA funds to purchase the back truck from us. And I think it'd be wise for us, instead of financing this back truck, since it is a $397,000 ticket, we could save, it's from the funds we financed it in, it's
pretty substantial, especially in storm and sewer, which we also need to keep in mind our bond refinance ratio and all of the unknown that's coming with that. So I think it'd be wise for us to use some of the ARP money to purchase that piece of equipment.
Nate?
I'm okay with using the ARP money to buy. I think it would help those funds and their health. I just would like to make sure, can we get an opinion from auditor or someone as far as that
Use
goes?
the VM.
Just to make sure.
It's just about anything that goes towards the improvement of your sewer, water, storm system. Anything from the beginning of March can actually be used, because I know Dennis had an emergency clarifier or digester, was it?
Yeah.
$50,000 ticket out of nowhere, yeah, it's the kind of stuff that happens with the sewer plant.
So John, that would come straight out of 9?
Yes,
Okay. Now we require a budget amendment.
yes,
Huh?
yes.
Okay.
What, it,
Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Or it would come out of the fund that we created for ARPA.
Correct.
Yes.
Do we have that money in there? Have they deposited that?
They
money?
have not deposited the money yet.
But this one, depending on which truck we go with, they're both pay on delivery.
Okay.
At the earliest would be 60 days out.
Okay.
We went with the other one, we're looking maybe towards January.
So we could front it out of general fund if we had to, and then pay general fund back and advance.
Can you check?
I think we'll have those funds within 60 days.
Okay.
I think we have.
Can you check to see if we can do that also?
Absolutely.
And see if, make sure we don't, not excluding a reimbursement, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Okay. If it's gonna come out of the ARPA money, I'll give a favorable recommendation.
Is that a motion?
Make a motion to give favorable recommendation to resolution 2136.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 2136 is favorably recommended by finance. Ordinance 2137 is the last thing, John, we briefly are purchasing three new cruisers out of the police vehicle replacement fund, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
this supposedly was going to have another bond issue, and we spoke to Citizens Deposit Bank, put them in contact with Brenda Weimer. They were able to work things out together to where it's not going to have to be a bond issue. And I checked yesterday with Citizens Deposit Bank. They said everything was on track and looking good, but they have not closed that portion of it yet. So hopefully by the next council meeting, everything will be closed with them. Citizens Deposit Bank, as they told me, was matching the bond rate. So it was a pretty good deal. We will be below budgets on vehicle purchases from the police replacement fund.
Nate?
I'd just like to note that the financing payments for these vehicles comes out of the police equipment replacement fund, which is funded by impound lot sales, not by any tax dollars at all. Does not come from the general fund.
And a stellar auctioneer.
A stellar auctioneer. So I'd like to make a motion to give ordinance 2137 favorable recommendation.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ordinance 2137 is favorably recommended by finance, and John Elam is our auctioneer, for those of you that weren't in on that joke. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn finance just because we're at 6 o'clock. Nate? Bob?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I've been waiting to do. Okay. Been waiting to do this for 15 months. Call to order the Ironton City Council meeting of June 10th, 2021. If everyone would please stand for the invocation given tonight by Reverend Steve Harvey from Sharon Baptist Church, not the one that hosts Family Feud, the one that's my father, and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
before I pray, I want to tell you guys that we appreciate you. Don't ever think you sit in this meeting, nobody cares, nobody pays attention. I learned a long time ago, you try to pass out roses while you can. You guys need a rose every day because you got a tough job, for real. But the city's put you in a situation, and the people have put you in a situation to do what you do. And I really appreciate you. I don't tell you that enough when I see you outside, but you need to know that you're appreciated people, for real. You got a big job on your shoulders and a lot of opportunities on your plate. And the next time you ride in the parade, you got to have a sign on your Jeep that says you're the mayor. I mean, be proud.
There was one.
Well, I didn't see it when I came.
Very small.
Well, we need a big one.
Neon.
Let's pray. God, you're good to us, and I thank you for the opportunity today just to stand here in the council meeting, not virtual, we're live and up close and personal. I thank you, Lord, for we seemingly turned the corner in this pandemic situation that we find not only our city and our state in, but our country and the world. So we're grateful for the opportunity just to lead this prayer for the city leaders, and I pray that make great and good decisions as well for all of us. Thank you for our mayor, for all the staff, the support staff, the police, the fire, everybody that watches over us and protects us every single day. It's a tough call, but they have been elected by people in this city to do their jobs. And I thank you so much for their families and the homes that they represent. Give us a great meeting tonight. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be and to serve in this great city. I thank you for my church and the people that come and go. And because we have this city here on the river, we're all together in a oneness. Christ said we're all together in one. So I appreciate the opportunity tonight just to be here. And I pray for all these city leaders in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That was weird how that was in. That was in sync. Roll call, please.
Cleary.
Here.
Haney.
Here.
Harvey.
Here.
Hawk.
Here.
Vaughn.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Rist.
Miss Rist sends her regrets that she can't be here tonight. She is ill. Next, we have the approval of the meeting minutes of the Finance Committee meeting of May 24th, 2021, and the regular council meeting minutes of May 24th, 2021. Are there any errors, omissions, additions to those meeting minutes? I have one. Marta keeps leaving me off the Finance Committee meeting, so I was present on the meeting of May 24th. I called it to order, but I was absent apparently, so we already discussed it ahead of time. Others? Hearing none, those meeting minutes will stand as approved. Next is audience participation. So if any of you all have concerns from our residents, Chris?
I've got a couple. A few of them have actually been resolved somewhat so far, but Paul Roach, 7th and Wine Oak, there's a T right there on that street, 7th and Wine Oak. He approached actually the mayor and myself about semi trucks using 7th Street to get to one of the new factories or commercial places. He said there's been damage to neighbors' lawns. He's worried about vehicles, but 7th Street, as we know, is not a truck route for semis. He was wondering if we could maybe put up some signs on Park Avenue. The issue may be GPS telling these trucks to go that way, but as a truck driver, you should see, those streets aren't necessarily, they're not the best for semi trucks, but he was wondering maybe if we would get some signs along Park Avenue or maybe Vernon to detour trucks from going down residential streets.
We don't have them on Park Avenue currently, but Chris, this comes up at least once every 3 months or so. Residents on 9th Street, because the bricks, the semis tear up the bricks. They come down Liberty Avenue / 12th Street, and then they see the signs there at the stop sign that say no semis, so then they turn, and then they go down 11th, or they go down 9th, or they go down 7th, and so we've been battling this over and over again. We just so you know, like over the last 4 years at least, we've put up signs on the 141 exit, on the exit, then at the stoplight. We've sent out memos from the mayor's office, although Sam, I don't know if you have, but I know the 2 previous administrations have sent out memos to like Muth or GTL now, Vertiv, those industries at that end of town, to say, can you please just post this where your deliveries are, don't follow your GPS, come in and use Commerce Drive from Cold Grove. So we have tried, but it's worth another, at least if you haven't at least sent a memo, just to send one more.
Worked through Bill Dingus to communicate with them. That was over a year ago though, and I was actually with Chris when he actually stopped me. The issue we run into a lot is that Spanish speaking is not that, and they're taking just a regular GPS that you or I would. So Mike was the one that said maybe we need to put them on every street off Park Avenue and off 3rd Street, but maybe having Spanish and English language on there. I mean, because even the people that are, when they're dropping off their load, they're probably not communicating verbally. Well, even if they can communicate verbally, doesn't mean they can read English, you know what I mean?
See,
Yeah.
Pam.
That's about it for me.
As you know, like you said, this has been an ongoing problem. I spoke with the superintendent up to ODOT. He's supposed to get back with me. I asked him for some signage on 52 eastbound and westbound, directing truck traffic to the Cold Grove exit going eastbound and westbound to the 93 exit. I spoke to the mayor about that. I spoke to him. Now, if anybody else has any influence on District 9 at ODOT, I would invite you to also speak with them to see. I think that would eliminate a lot of, and we have written several tickets for off the truck route there. That's just, as everyone knows, we don't have the manpower just to sit there.
Mhm.
And I too have spoken with Mr. Roach more than once. And not only him, but several other of our residents. And I do understand their concern. We get trucks, I think it was last year, we got some trucks stuck on a tree lawn up there. And they ended up having to call Kogan's. It was a big mess. So it's not something that we're not aware of. We're trying to remedy it. It's just right now the remedy is not as easy as I would hope for.
We've been trying for at least 7.5 years
Yes.
that I'm aware of.
And once again, I feel like if the signage was on 52
Yeah.
that says go to exit whatever up to Cold Grove and go to exit whatever down here at 93, that would eliminate the biggest part of our problem with like 2 signs. But when you turn down into 141 already, you're committed. You're going to go one way or the other. You can't back up and go back on the highway.
Yeah.
So that's, I'm working on it. But
Yeah, I can speak with Mike Zombrowski. He's the deputy director of District 9. See about that.
yeah.
Chris said you had a couple.
I've got a couple. Chief, I appreciate your guys' efforts on that, but, I mean, really, would somebody expect you guys to patrol that street for semis? I don't think. I think that, like you said, there's a couple easy solutions, and if we get those signs, I think that'd help out tremendously.
And we do.
In Espanol.
But, there's other.
Obviously, the signs aren't what's the problem.
And in Espanol.
Yeah. So thank you guys for your efforts, but, I think a couple signs, like you said, could help that out. Another one, Caleb Brown lives between Vine and McGovney on 9th Street. She messaged me before Memorial Day about a water leak. In the street, there was actually standing water in the middle of 9th Street. So I immediately just got a hold of Brett, and he said, you know, they're busy. Memorial Day was slammed, but he was gonna check next week. He said that he would get to it this past week, so I'm sure he did. So I just wanted to make sure that was in minutes. One more was Wayne Kidd, lives close to Mr. Roach on 7th and Wine Oak. Was complaining about high grass in his neighbor's yard. Mark and Susan took care of that last night in our workshop. So, a couple things that were taken care of.
Wayne's an expert at cutting grass. He should have
That's what
done
I
it
said.
himself.
Just go there.
Got any others? You got any others?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Nate, did you have one?
Yes, sir.
I thought you faked me out over there.
Well,
May-
I just had something to add on that truck thing, but, Mike posted because I had the same thing on Fifth Street. He had a no truck sign right between, Park and Vernon. When we put it up, it seemed like it did help slow it down, not totally remedy, but, I mean, I think if you had some more, like no trucks pointing that way, closer to the, on the red lights where people were looking, that might be a solution also on Park Avenue. Obviously, there's not a light on 7th, but actual signs on Park, I think, would be beneficial. It's my 2 cents.
Not yet, but Mayor Stop Sign can put one on his new stop sign on 7th and Park, right? It's a joke.
You're the one that puts those up.
You got anything, Sam?
No, I'm good right now.
All right.
I do have one more, I'm sorry. It's already been remedied. Blue Mains on Pleasant and 7th had a neighbor with high grass, but Mark had already taken care of it. They'd already sent out letters, and it's actually, the grass has been cut since then, so that's already been remedied.
It's Andrew Maines for the minutes, just FYI.
You told me to call him Blue Mains.
Well, I know, because I didn't know who the hell you were talking about. Now I know. Moving on to communications, we have none. Reports, there are none. Ordinances, if the clerk could please give ordinance 2135 first reading by title only.
Establishing water rates for residential and commercial water users for the city of Ironton, Ohio, and declaring an emergency first reading.
This received unfavorable recommendation from PUC tonight. Again, just to recap, this is a schedule from July 1st through of this year through the year 2030, 2030, for a proactive approach to our water fund that is showing a deficit next year. Not only to fix the rate, but also to proactively fix the infrastructure underneath our city with pipes and valves and pumps, etc., that are vital to residents receiving clean drinking water. And we, through the mayor's contacts, utilized a firm, RCAP, Rural Community Assistance Program, that independently evaluated our water and our infrastructure and took multiple things into account, including our current rates, including our current state of our infrastructure, including the median income of the citizens of Ironton, and an affordability index, which the state uses that same affordability index to determine grant eligibility. We were under that affordability index, which is at 1.5%, and we were around 1%, 0.9, I think, was where we were at as far as our rates for water. And as I mentioned in PUC, I said I was just going to talk about it here, but as I mentioned in PUC, I share the frustrations of some with fees and raising rates, and I know Mr. Haney was passionate about it in our earlier meeting and before he was ever elected about rates. And part of the reason for that, I believe, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but I firmly believe that part of the reason for the frustration and the irritation of our citizens for us raising rates is because it's done reactively. It's done to put a Band-Aid on a bleeding fund that is going into the red, that's supposed to generate its own, or be self-sufficient, and we have not done that. And we, as a city council, that's our job to appropriate money. We, over the years, have not been proactive and future forward thinking when it comes to replacement of failing infrastructure, when it comes to looking at a 5-year forecast, looking at employees that it takes to run those water distribution areas, that EPA mandates that we are obligated to abide by, that take new personnel, that take redesign and taking a look at our infrastructure and starting over in some instances. So anyway, all that said, RCAP again analyzed all those things and presented us what I thought was a good plan that not only kept us from being in the red, but planned for those future things to replace, to stay on a schedule, to keep us in the 21st century when it comes to our water distribution and delivering clean drinking water to our citizens without the daily worry of those pipes that are underground busting and us hemorrhaging money from those things because we have failing infrastructure. So I know this is the first reading, and I know it's going to go 3 readings, but who knows what our citizens will watch this meeting or the 3rd reading meeting. So I just wanted to sum it up. If anybody would like to comment, you can. Chris.
Like I said, what she just reiterated, that this is probably going to go 3 meetings, and just maybe repeat what we talked about a little bit in the PUC meeting, was that, you know, we'd like to maybe take a deeper look into some of the current fees and the structure of some of those fees and service fees, and possibly come up with a creative way to either lighten the blow or you know, make it a no blood situation. So offsetting situation. So went a little bit deeper into that in PUC, and I'm not going to waste everybody's time on this, but like I said, I'd like to work with everybody and come to a compromise on that. So.
Nate.
Also, I think the mayor's working on putting a link together where this investment would go and what it would be dedicated to. So would you be able to put that in, link to that ahead of time for people to view?
To see what, yeah, getting it into PDF and gathering everything. We have, it's a very large document of the proposal of, or the schedule of changing out the assets and the life.
The improvements and then, okay.
Yeah, but I was thinking that we would provide just all of it, so you can see every little thing that's going to be changing.
Okay.
Making it available by PDF on the city website.
Okay.
Would that PDF be the presentation that we saw with the car parts and all that?
That's more so to explain why we're doing what we're doing, but this would, I'm talking about showing each dollar amount on each item that you're looking at, what it's gonna cost each year, how the rate schedule actually incorporates that, so we're kind of taking care of what we used to call the unknown. You know, it's not like we're gonna have to come back and be like, well, we had an emergency, kind of like you said, it's been in the past. This kind of makes sure that we're changing things in and out. It's like he explained, it's change the oil in your car and change the tires on your car. You don't run it until it goes out, and then you have to ask for money to replace it or fill it up.
All right, thank you. Moving on to, I'm just making, I thought your hand was up, Bob, sorry. I forgot, I got faked out. I got you in my periphery. Moving on to resolutions, if the clerk could please give resolution 2133 reading by title only.
To adopt the indirect cost allocation plan based on 2020 expenditures.
Bob?
The Finance Committee made a favorable recommendation for resolution 2133, and I'd like to make a motion to pass resolution 2133.
Jacob?
I'll second that motion.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Cleary.
Aye.
Haney.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Resolution 2133 passes. If the clerk could please give resolution 2134 reading by title only.
Resolution authorizing the submission of a competitive economic development community development block grant application for the GTL lumber expansion project.
Bob?
Question from Ms. Felstead, do we favorably recommend that?
We didn't hear about that in finance, so this is the first one. This is,
Yeah, I didn't think so. I guess we'll go ahead and look at passing it without the recommendation.
It's not spending money.
yeah,
Okay.
it's a application, grant application, correct? Yeah.
All right, I'll make a motion that we pass resolution 2134.
Mike?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Cleary.
Aye.
Haney.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Resolution 2134 passes. If the clerk could please give resolution 2136 reading by title only.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a purchase agreement for the purchase of a vac truck and declaring an emergency.
Bob?
This resolution has received a favorable recommendation. I'd like to make a motion that we pass resolution 2136.
Chris?
Second.
That was from finance tonight too.
Yes.
Chris?
I'd like to add to the minutes that, the mayor and who else negotiated the sale of the old truck, Mayor?
It was me. With
Just-
West
just the mayor,
Lafayette.
thank you.
Oh, the
Okay.
village
Yeah.
of West Lafayette.
The
Yeah.
Village of West Lafayette for $85,000 for our old back truck. And do we need to include using the ARPA funds for that?
Is that language in it, Nate?
It's not in us, do we need to add any of that, or?
It's budgeted.
There'll need to be a budget amendment coming later for that, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't do it when the funds aren't available.
Right, it's not.
And it's not in there yet.
It's not gonna be.
So there's gonna have to be an additional
It'll be,
budget amendment once the.
the funds will be there by the time we pay for it.
Thank you.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Cleary.
Aye.
Haney.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Resolution 2136 passes. If the clerk could please give resolution 2137 reading by title only.
Authorizing the mayor to enter into a contract for the purchase of 3 new police vehicles and declaring an emergency.
Bob?
Finance Committee give this resolution 2137 favorable recommendation. I'd like to make a motion to pass 2137.
Mike?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah.
I'd like to add, Mr. Klein brought up in the finance committee meeting, that this is allocated from the police equipment replacement fund, and it's not cost for taxpayers. It is, revenue generated is from, vehicle.
Impound.
Auctions.
Other discussion? Roll call, please.
Hany.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Next, we have miscellaneous. Pam, were you waving or?
No, just one of my.
All right, all right. Nate,
I'm excited.
I'd like to make a motion to go to executive session, to discuss contracts and real estate with mayor, solicitor, and finance director. No action to follow.
I'll second that.
Jacob, thank you.
I guess one
Any,
thing miscellaneous for still.
go ahead.
So, yeah, you, as you remember, you guys allocated some funds for a residential, drop-off day for, extraordinary items, dump day. We're looking at, tentatively, but looking most likely it's going to be the 26th of June. We'll put some information out on that here shortly.
Will that be on the city website, Sam?
We'll probably put it out as far and wide as we can, city website, social media.
Okay.
Just one day?
Yeah, we'll have more of them throughout.
And I'm just assuming you're leaving that vague because the location's yet to be determined?
Right.
Okay, all right, thank
And
you.
you never know, we might have a monsoon coming that day.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't rain in here. Motion,
Did you want to mention anything about the renovation for the Friends Park?
I think last time, I've given
I
that
didn't know if
like
you wanted-
5 times now.
Well, the more volunteers and
No, I mean, it's just moving forward, we're still meeting, Brett, myself, and Ralph Klein every Monday to make sure we stay on top of it.
good deal. Thank you.
And if you want to make a donation, please contact my office, how to do so.
There we go.
we have a motion from Nate for executive session, seconded by Jacob for contracts and real estate with no action to follow with the council solicitors, mayor, and finance director. Is that right, Nate?
Yes, sir.
Roll call, please.
Leary.
Aye.
Hany.
Aye.
Harvey.
Aye.
Hawk.
Aye.
Klein.
Aye.
Pierce.
Aye.
Thank you all. We are adjourned.